air was thick with anticipation, and the sound of laughter floated through the elegant halls of the Wilshire Hotel, a place where memories poured themselves into the very walls. I stood on the brink of chaos, my head spinning, heart pounding like a relentless drum, as I took in the sight of the shimmering white flowers that draped the tall arches, the sheer satin drapes that fluttered gently in the afternoon breeze, and the golden accents that adorned every corner. It was a spectacle worthy of a magazine cover, and no one would have ever guessed the sinister undertones that underpinned this delightful facade. Today was supposed to be one of joy for my former best friend, but joy was the last thing I felt. The image of Jessica Walker in her pristine white dress flickered in my mind, her face radiant with an excitement that made my insides coil with something darker. As I moved through the crowd, I felt like a ghost, a shadow lingering in the peripheral vision of the real party. "Elena," a voice chimed, and I turned to see Rachel, another friend from our college days, approaching. Her auburn hair bounced in waves as she waved enthusiastically, her smile impossibly bright. "You made it." "Of course," I responded, forcing a smile that felt too stiff. "She asked me to come, after all." Rachel beamed, hardly noticing the slight edge in my tone. "You look amazing. Are you excited to see Jess walk down the aisle? She's going to look so beautiful." "Yeah, beautiful," I mumbled, my fingers clenching into fists as I forced my gaze to follow the sea of guests spilling into the main reception room. "Come on, let's grab some champagne to toast to the happy couple," Rachel suggested, oblivious to my simmering tension. "Sure," I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. As we weaved through the crowd, the scent of fresh lilies and the distant sound of a string quartet filled my senses, creating an illusion of peace that clashed violently with the turmoil I felt inside. My thoughts turned inward, racing back to the moment I had received an invitation in the mail, embossed in gold, dripping with sincerity, but laced with betrayal. Jessica had not just invited me, she had offered a chance for closure, a ticket to an event drenched in the spotlight that shone on her perfect love story, while plunging me deeper into the dark chasm of my unresolved feelings for her fiancé, Mark. Why did she have to marry him? The man who had effortlessly swept me off my feet all those months ago, only to turn around and lead me straight into the arms of my worst nightmare, betrayal. "Elena, you okay?" Rachel's voice broke through, pulling me from my spiral of despair. She watched as I stared blankly at my drink, the golden liquid somehow more enticing than the words I meant to say. "Yeah, just peachy," I replied, a sarcastic hint creeping into my tone. Rachel eyed me, tilting her head slightly as if attempting to read my mind. "You still seem a little out of it. You can talk to me, you know." I took a sip from my glass, the bubbles tickling my nose, biting back the urge to spill all my hurt about how Jess had assumed everything would just return to normal after the mess that had exploded between us. "It's just this whole wedding thing. It's a lot, Rach." I could almost feel the weight of my words trying to escape. "Totally understandable," Rachel nodded empathetically. "But you have to at least have fun tonight. Nothing ruin a wedding unless you let it." I forced a laugh, but even I could hear its lack of sincerity. "Oh, I'll try." The truth clawed at my chest, sharp and relentless. Thoughts of the past invaded my mind, the vision of Mark's warm smile, and the way he could make every anxious thought vanish with a single glance. The night we met flashed before me his laugh as we swapped stories on a rainy evening, the way his fingers brushed against mine when he handed me my drink, sending shivers up my spine. Where had that connection gone? When had it withered away like autumn leaves before their time? "Listen," Rachel said, her voice low. "You're going to be fine. Jess is marrying the love of her life, and I know she would want you to be happy for her." "Happily ever after," I scoffed, thinking of how meaningless those words had become. When she asked me to be her maid of honor, it felt like a stab to my ribs, a reminder of everything I had lost in my hopeless pursuit of someone who was never meant to be mine. Standing at that altar, hearing the words "I do," they would drip with a bittersweet melody that would carve me into oblivion. The chord of violins filled the air, signaling an impending ceremony, and the thrumming in my chest grew louder, competing with the symphony of love around me. "I should go get a good seat," I said abruptly, fighting the tide of emotions that threatened to break free. Rachel nodded, a hint of worry crossing her features. "All right, just remember to breathe. I'll catch up with you later." As I moved toward the aisle where chairs had been meticulously arranged in a delicate pattern, it struck me how ironic it was that Jessica was about to tie the knot when only a few months prior she had been the one to comfort me through my heartache regarding Mark. The pounding of my heart echoed in my ears as I thought of the secrets we had shared. How could she have moved on so effortlessly when I was still trapped in the memories of him? I took my seat, trying to keep the tremor from my hands as I shifted my purse onto my lap. The sight of families, couples grasping each other's hands affectionately, children fidgeting in their seats, all seemed to mock the emptiness I felt. Every set of eyes was wide with bliss, unknowingly unaware of the storm brewing inside me. Just then, the doors of the grand hall opened, and the first blast of bright light poured in as Jessica appeared, beaming like a halo had descended upon her. The guests erupted in applause, their cheers ringing in the air like music. When Jess began to walk down the aisle, her father's arm steadying her, she looked every bit the bride she had always dreamed of being. My heart sank as I let the reality crash over me. This was really happening. Mark stood at the altar, a handsome figure clad in a tailored suit, his eyes locked onto Jessica with a devotion so pure it brought fresh waves of bitterness rushing through me. His smile was contagious. The warmth radiating from him sent a chill down my spine, a reminder of moments we would never share again. My gaze flickered back to Jessica, and in that immediate moment, she caught my eyes, and everything stopped. "Hey, Elena, I'm really happy you came," she mouthed as she walked slowly, her eyes sparkling. "You mean a lot to me." I struggled to decipher the sincerity behind her words, forcing myself to respond with a nod, though inside I felt hollow. Every step she took toward Mark was a step further away from me, an unspoken farewell to everything we had been and the friendship we had shared. as vows began to fill the air. Each promise uttered was like a knife twisting in my gut. I was a bird trapped in a cage, acutely aware that I had lost my freedom. I couldn't quite pinpoint when it happened, but I had slipped farther away, into the shadows, stifled by resentment and helplessness. The efficient began, but his words faded into a distant hum as my thoughts spiraled out of control. With each promise of love and devotion, I felt myself unraveling, tangled in a web of betrayal. It was there I made my resolve. I would no longer be the quiet observer in my own life. No more sidelines, no more pretending that all was well. This wedding, this joyous day, it marked the beginning of my own quest for retribution. Mark, the efficient, began, his voice echoing through the hall, the name hitting me like a thunderclap. Do you take Jessica to be your lawfully wedded wife? And as I leaned forward with a heartbeat louder than the symphony around me, I realized that with the finality of I do, everything that had once been mine would vanish into thin air. And all I could hold on to was the embers of my buried anger, a fire soon to roar back to life. I would have my vengeance. This day would not end without a reckoning. Elena Harper stood at the kitchen sink, eyes staring blankly out at the fog that hung over San Francisco as thick as the weight on her heart. The water rushed over her hands, warm and comforting, but it couldn't wash away the bitterness that had settled in her soul. She had spent the entire morning trying to scrub away the haze of betrayal that lingered ever since she discovered that Thomas, her former partner in every sense of the word, had been cheating on her. Waves of anger and hurt crashed over her, each one more intense than the last. She pulled her hands from the soapy water, letting the droplets slide down her wrists. I can't believe he would do this to me, she whispered to herself, anger sparking in her chest like fire in a windstorm. But as much as she wanted to throw something, to scream, she felt a heavier feeling pull her back. No more tears for him, Elena said quietly. She could hardly recognize the reflection staring back at her. Her dark hair was pulled back into a loose bun, strands escaping and framing her face like tendrils of smoke. Her green eyes, usually bright and lively, were clouded with frustration. It was time to stop moping around in her tiny studio apartment and start plotting. I won't just sit around and let him have the last laugh, she decided, her voice firm as she wiped her hands on a towel. The next step awaited her. Picking up her phone, she gazed at the screen, wondering who might be able to help her put her plan into action. She had a few friends, but only one stood out, Mia. Mia had always been Elena's partner in crime and the savvy sidekick she needed. With a deep breath, she tapped on Mia's contact, heart pounding as she waited for her friend to pick up. Elena, you sound off. What's going on? Mia's voice buzzed through the speaker, bright but laced with concern. Do you have time to meet? I need your help. Absolutely. Where should we go? How about the cafe on 18th? You know, the one with the terrible Wi-Fi, but the best pastries. Elena closed her eyes momentarily, a smile tugging at her lips. Those pastries were her weakness. Perfect. I'll be there in 20. As she hung up, Elena felt a shiver of anticipation run down her spine. The fog outside hadn't begun to lift, and she welcomed the chill, feeling it match her mood perfectly. She grabbed her worn leather jacket, the one that smelled of promise and new beginnings, and slipped it on. The walk to the cafe was short, but invigorating, the air crisp and sharp against her skin. The fog felt almost alive, wrapping around her, reminding her of how thickly it blanketed her current state of mind. Arriving at the cafe, she spotted Mia sitting at a corner table, scrolling through her phone, her vibrant purple hair standing out even in the hazy light. "Hey, over here." Mia waved energetically, her smile contagious. "You brought your appetite, right?" "Always," Elena replied, sliding into the chair across from her. "I might devour the entire menu if this keeps up." The two shared a laugh, and for a moment, Elena felt the burden on her heart lift slightly. "What's up? You look like you have a plan brewing," Mia said, after the waitress dropped off a steaming cup of coffee and a plate of croissants piled high. "Kind of do," Elena admitted, taking a sip of her coffee, savoring the rich flavor as it warmed her. "But it's not what you think. I am so tired of feeling like the victim in this whole mess." "Good. You shouldn't. You deserve better than that jerk," Mia replied fiercely. "So what do you have in mind?" "I want to make him regret everything." A dangerous spark lit in Elena's chest. "I want to show him that I am not going to be some sad girl sitting in the corner while he lives his best life." "I love the sound of that. Tell me more." Elena leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "I need someone to help me get a little creative. I want to catch him off guard. You're thinking revenge, like a proper plan." Mia's eyes lit up with mischief, a smile creeping onto her face that told Elena she was on the right track. "Exactly," Elena said, a fire igniting in her belly. "I can't just walk away. It has to be memorable, something that makes him rethink how he treated me." "What are you thinking?" Mia was eager, and that made Elena's heart race even faster. "I want to expose him. He is still parading around as the perfect boyfriend to everyone else. If I can show them what he's really like, maybe that would make him think twice." "And how do you plan to do that?" Mia asked, leaning closer. Elena paused, her mind racing. "I know he has a big meeting coming up next week for a project at work. If I show up there and make a scene, if I can get some of his colleagues to see who he really is, that could be huge." Her pulse quickened as she spoke, the adrenaline of the thought taking over. "You think that's too much?" "No, I think it sounds brilliant. But you need to do it right." Mia took a deep breath, and Elena could see the wheels turning in her friend's mind. Phil, his boss, is a real no-nonsense kind of guy. If you want to make an impact, you need it to be big. Catch everyone's attention, including Phil's. That is exactly what I need. If Phil sees what kind of person Thomas really is, he could lose everything. The idea sent a shiver of excitement through Elena. But I still need to gather more information. We can't just show up and hope for the best, right? "You know I have connections," Mia said, her smile taking on a new edge. "I could dig a little into his work life, get a sense of when and where." "Oh, yes, that's perfect," Elena said, the adrenaline surging through her veins like a tidal wave. "If I can get you to find out who will be there, if I can put this whole plan together." "I'm in," Mia said, her grin widening. "We need a prop or something to really make your presence known. Maybe some big poster or something dramatic? Elena laughed, the sound breaking through the thick weight of her current situation. What are we actually performing a play? Something dramatic and over the top may just do the trick. Have you thought about what you want to say? You want this to be impactful, something that sticks with him. Yes, I want my words to cut through, Elena said, her voice steady. Something that makes them realize how fake he is. Maybe something like, just because it's out of sight does not mean it's out of mind. I like that. A strong message, Mia said, her excitement bubbling over. Let's brainstorm some more while we eat. They carved into their croissants, the buttery taste melting on their tongues as they tossed ideas around. Every morsel was fuel for the fire growing inside Elena, and she could feel herself coming alive with each laugh shared, and conversation turned toward plotting her revenge. As they delved into schemes, discussing different ways to execute her plan, Elena found herself feeling lighter for each passing minute. You know, I was thinking, Mia said, wiping crumbs from her mouth. What if you could somehow gather evidence of what Thomas has been doing? Like if you could record something, or even get someone on your side. You're right. I could talk to Anna, Elena said, her mind racing. Anna was a common friend and had just suffered through her own mess with Thomas, having gone on a date with him weeks before. If she's willing to share what he said, it could show his true character. There you go. The more proof you have, the stronger your message will be, Mia encouraged, leaning back in her chair, pride flickering in her eyes. We'll get this done. I'm so glad you are on board with this. I didn't want to do it alone, Elena admitted, her heart swelling with gratitude. I don't think it would be half as fun without you. You have nothing to worry about. I have your back, Mia said, her eyes sparkling with mischief. The two of them spent the next couple of hours diving deeper into the details, sketching a rough outline of their plan. Once they dreamed up a descent showpiece that would leave a mark, Elena felt invincible. The power of revenge coursed through her veins like electricity. She could almost see the moment when Thomas would have no choice but to come face to face with the consequences of his actions. As they wrapped up their plotting and finished their food, Elena felt a palpable sense of purpose take root in her. Thank you for always being here for me. I don't know what I would do without you, she said sincerely, happiness washing over her as she looked at Mia. You mean the world to me. You got it. Now, let's get back to work on this, shall we? Elena beamed, anticipation bubbling in her gut. The clock was ticking, and time was on her side. She would reclaim not just her dignity, but her life. In her mind, she could already see each moment unfolding, the revelation lighting up like fireworks. And as they stepped out into the San Francisco fog, Elena felt like she was ready to write her own story. One where she would be the one in charge, not a side character in someone else's life. I stared out at the shimmering San Francisco Bay from my tiny apartment window, watching the waves roll in and out, much like the tide of emotions within me. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden glow that flickered over the city's skyline. It was beautiful, yet the beauty felt totally foreign, a stark contrast to the storm brewing in the pit of my stomach. My head throbbed with a mixture of anger and determination. It had been 3 days since I made the decision to go after Jason. The memories of his smug smile, the way he had looked down on me at the office, all those moments gnawed at my insides. The betrayal still felt fresh, the visceral ache of rejection leaving me seething. I could still hear his voice, that insufferable mix of charm and condescension. You will never make it in this industry without me, Elena. Take my advice and stick to the bigger picture. His words echoed in my mind as I paced the room, my heart racing and my hands clenched into fists. I wanted to scream, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. I had a plan, and I needed to take those first careful steps to execute it. The flickering light from the sunset danced across my polished hardwood floor, and that light also shone on my laptop as I sat down, eyes glued to the screen. The project I had been working on for months was finally going to be completed, a passion piece that Jason had derided at every opportunity. With each keystroke, I felt the tension unravel ever so slightly. There was power in the flickering cursor staring back at me, as if it were a judge waiting for my next monumental decision. I couldn't help but think about how Jason had always dismissed my contributions, how he had taken credit for my ideas, and how he strutted around the office like he owned the place. I had faced humiliation at his hands, but in that moment, I closed my eyes and visualized my success washing over him like an unforgiving tidal wave. I'm going to show you, I whispered to myself. Suddenly, my phone buzzed, jolting me from my thoughts. It was a message from Ria, my best friend and my sounding board for all things revenge. She knew what Jason had done. Hey, girl, I'm on my way over. You ready to talk? I couldn't help but smile at that. Ria always had that quirky ability to lighten even the darkest moods. I'll be ready, I typed back quickly, exiting the document and tidying up the chaos that my thoughts had created on my desk. Just as I was finishing up, I heard the familiar sound of Ria's key rattling in the lock, followed by the enthusiastic surprise. The moment she stepped in, the room seemed instantly brighter. Ria swept her long dark hair over her shoulder and collapsed onto my worn-out couch, kicking off her shoes as she sank back with a joyful sigh. I missed you. It feels like ages since we have had a good catch-up. Her laughter was infectious, and I found myself relaxing despite the weight of my recent intentions. I know, right? Work has been intense, but I think I'm finally close to something big, I said, trying to gauge her reaction. If anyone might understand my mission for revenge, it was Ria. She sat up, her interest piqued. What do you mean big? Spill all the tea, girl. I leaned in closer, lowering my voice as if the walls were listening. So, you know I've been working on that project about sustainable fashion, right? Ria nodded enthusiastically, her bright green eyes sparkling with excitement. Of course, the one you told me about at the cafe. What's the update? I'm ready to go public with it. I've drafted a presentation for the big industry expo next month, and I plan to make sure Jason sees it. I want him to understand that I can succeed without him. Ria's expression switched from excitement to a more serious gaze. Are you sure about this, Elena? You know how he can twist things to his advantage. You don't want him to sabotage your success. The thought tightened my chest, but I pushed back the fear. I won't let him. I've learned enough about him from his past deals. I'm going to use his own tactics against him. He thinks he can silence me. I'm going to roar." Rhea grinned and grabbed my hands, giving them a squeeze. "Let's plan. What do you need to get ready for this presentation? I am here for you." I hesitated, feeling a rush of gratitude that came with her unwavering support. "First, I need a list of everyone who is critical in making this project a success. I want to start promoting it on social media. I want excitement, buzz, and I want Jason to sweat a little." Rhea laughed, her eyes glinting mischievously. "I can do social media like a pro. Let's make it look irresistible. You and I, unstoppable." I took a deep breath, already feeling my spirits lift with Rhea's encouragement. Clock chimed softly, echoing through the room, marking the passage of time as I began to feel a renewed sense of purpose. Rhea pulled out her phone and a notepad, ready to jot down ideas, while I paced back and forth, ideas flowing like a river. "We need to target influencers in the sustainability niche. I know a couple of bloggers who would love to share our story," Rhea said, her voice full of excitement. "And what about a sneak peek video? We can film it right here." I grinned, my heart racing faster. "That sounds amazing. We can show what the project stands for, the importance of sustainability in fashion, and bring in those heart-wrenching statistics that Jason will hate to hear. You know how much he loves to dismiss anything that doesn't make his ego grow," Rhea said with a playful roll of her eyes. I clenched my fists again, feeling that hot rush of anger return. I would show Jason that I wasn't just a shadow in his spotlight. I was my own light. Yes, and let's make it raw and emotional. We want people to feel something, to want to be a part of this journey," I said, finally catching fire. "And we can add some of your personal story, how you got into the industry, what it means to you." Rhea's excitement fed my ambition. The moment I shared my battle against adversity, how I had clawed my way up, people would understand my passion. I wanted everyone to know how I had persevered despite the setbacks. I want to make my voice heard. "I have been too quiet for too long," I said with determination. Rhea stood up, her energy radiating into the room. "What are we waiting for? Let's seize the moment. We will draft an outline, brainstorm some compelling ideas, and get ahead of the game." The atmosphere in the tiny apartment shifted as we bounced ideas back and forth, plotting the first steps on our journey. I could almost envision the audience at the expo, their faces slowly turning from skepticism to admiration as I presented the project. As we talked, I couldn't help but reflect on the fear that had held me back in the past. Jason might have been good at playing games, but I was about to play a different game altogether. "One last thing, Elena. You have to promise me," Rhea said, her tone suddenly serious. "If this gets nasty, you need to keep your cool. This isn't just about revenge. It's about your integrity." I nodded, recognizing the wisdom in her words. "I know, Rhea. I want to show him I can succeed without lowering myself to his level. But I want him to feel the weight of his actions, too." In that moment, I understood revenge could take many forms. I was determined to prove I was more than just a tool for Jason's ambitions, and I would do it with grace. We continued devising our plan, surrounded by empty coffee mugs and ever-increasing stacks of papers. I was grateful for Ria's partnership. Her unwavering support made the arduous path ahead seem just a little less daunting. Each word brought so much more clarity, not just for the project, but for my emotions, for the motives that drove me. Jason would definitely see me as a contender in the game this time. My skin prickled with anticipation as I waited for the day when he would face the consequences of underestimating me. The sun sank lower in the sky as we finalized plans, the intoxicating fragrance of coffee and hope filling the air, fueling my resolve. I could feel the momentum building in the pit of my stomach, propelling me forward into a future that could shift the power dynamics in the industry. And in my life, the wind whipped through the alley, carrying the scent of freshly baked bread from the bakery down the street. I leaned against the rough brick wall, one foot propped up against the cool surface, the air suffused with the tang of the city, part asphalt, part anticipation. My heart raced. This was it, the moment I had been waiting for. It felt surreal. Was I really about to confront Eric, the man who had taken everything from me, my trust, my innocence, my love? The weight of so many emotions pressed down on my chest as I tightened my grip on the small envelope in my pocket. I had spent weeks planning, and now it was finally time to execute my plan. Suddenly, a voice shattered my thoughts. Elena. I turned to see Leela, my closest friend, approaching with her usual effervescent energy shining through her worried expression. It was a whirlwind of curls and bright colors, her floral dress fluttering in the breeze. "You look intense." "I am intense," I said, forcing a smile as I tucked a loose strand of hair behind my ear. "I need to do this, Leela." "What did you say?" she asked, a hint of disbelief in her voice. "Are you actually going through with it? You know, confronting Eric?" "Yes, I have to," I replied, feeling the nervous knot in my stomach twist tighter. "He needs to know what he did to me. I can't just let it go." "Not anymore." She stepped closer, concern etched across her face. "But Elena, you remember last time, right? It got messy, and I don't want you to get hurt again. You said you were moving on." That was before I found out he was lying to everyone. Before I found out he's just gone on with his life, I said, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "This is not just about me. What about all the other women he will string along? What about the consequences?" Leela hesitated, her bright brown eyes searching mine. "I care about you. I understand your anger. But vengeance, it won't bring you peace." "Maybe not," I said, my voice growing sharper. "But I need justice." I turned away, staring across the street at Eric's office building looming like a monstrous tower, a facade of success that hid so many secrets. "He has to know I am not going to be his victim anymore," Leela sighed, her expression softening. "Okay. Just promise me you will be careful. Don't do anything reckless." "I'll be fine," I assured her, though the tremor in my voice betrayed my uncertainty. I turned my gaze back to her, smiling, trying to inspire confidence. "I just need you to trust me this one last time." "Always," she replied, pulling me into a quick hug that wrapped me in warmth. "Text me when you're done." "All right." I nodded, watching as she walked away, her colorful dress disappearing around the corner. With each step she took, I found my resolve firming up. I took a deep breath and let it out slowly, my exhale carrying away a fraction of my anxiety. All I could hear was the steady thump of my heart in my ears as I stood there, feeling the weight of decisions made and paths chosen. The street was quieter now, and I felt the world narrowing down to that single moment in time, my mission. I clutched the envelope tighter, its contents still hidden from my view, but burning in my mind. It contained everything I needed: testimonies, photographs, records, proof of the web of lies Eric had spun. My fingers brushed the edge of the envelope, and I visualized how I would deliver it, his reaction, the disbelief and confusion that would wash over his face when the truth unraveled. My feet finally moved, carrying me toward that imposing building. With each step, the stride I once had faltered under the weight of what lay ahead. It wasn't just revenge, it was a reckoning. The distant sounds of traffic melded with my thoughts, becoming a chaotic symphony of anticipation and dread. I could see the revolving door spin like the gears of fate, and I hesitated briefly at the threshold. Inside, the lobby was sophisticated and sleek, with polished marble floors reflecting the glimmer of modern art sculptures. Businessmen and women moved in and out, some clutching tablets, others lost in phone calls. The atmosphere pulsed with a sense of urgency, a stark contrast to the calm determination that surrounded me. I inhaled deeply, dismissing the coffee-heavy aroma that hinted at countless meetings transpiring within these walls. "Can I help you, ma'am?" The voice of a receptionist cut through my thoughts. She looked up from her computer, her professionalism evident in her crisp suit and neatly styled hair. I blinked, momentarily caught off guard by the question. "Yes, I am here to see Eric Whitman," I replied, mirroring her seriousness. "He's expecting me. Do you have an appointment?" She raised an eyebrow, peering at me with a hint of skepticism. Now was the moment when doubt could creep in, but I reminded myself that I was armed with the truth. "He knows I am coming. Please tell him Elena Harper is here." The receptionist's expression shifted slightly, and after a moment's pause, she punched a few keys on her keyboard. "All right, please take a seat. I will inform him." I nodded and took a seat in the plush chairs that felt oddly distant from the mission at hand. I fidgeted with the edges of the envelope, my heart racing. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours as I waited, the ticking of a clock echoing louder than my thoughts. Just as I began to wonder if I had made a mistake, the receptionist's voice broke through my fog. "Miss Harper, Mr. Whitman will see you now. Right this way." I rose to my feet, steadying myself, taking a moment to gather my thoughts before stepping into the lion's den. The receptionist guided me toward a sleek conference room with glass walls providing a panoramic view of the city. The vibrant skyline of San Francisco seemed to mock my turmoil as I crossed the threshold, the buzz of the world outside fading into distant whispers. Eric sat at a glossy, large table, a well-tailored suit draped over his frame, exuding confidence. He looked like a king ruling from his glass fortress, but kings have their weaknesses, and I was about to exploit his. When his gaze met mine, I saw surprise flash across his face, quickly masked by an air of casual indifference. "Elena," he said with a hint of a smirk, as if he hadn't seen me in ages. To what do I owe this unexpected pleasure? Cut the small talk, Eric, I replied, my voice steady, even as adrenaline coursed through my veins. We both know why I'm here. Oh, enlighten me, he said, leaning back in his chair and crossing his arms as if he were greeting an insignificant acquaintance. I took a deep breath, letting my memories fuel my words. You lied to everyone, Eric. You lied to me. You strung me along while manipulating my friends, my family, using them against me for your self-gain. He laughed dismissively, shaking his head. You're being dramatic. What happened with us was a mutual agreement. No, it wasn't, I snapped, my temper flaring. You played me. You toyed with my emotions like a cat with a mouse, Eric, and I will not let that go unpunished. Punished. His arrogance simmered through every syllable. Are you really going to act like you can intimidate me? You have no power here, Elena. Look around. You're in my domain. I stepped forward, determination hardening my posture. No, you don't get it. You think you're untouchable because you hide behind your power and wealth. But I have something you don't. I paused, letting my thoughts swirl before meeting his gaze, my heart pounding. I have the truth. I am not afraid of some childish scheme of revenge, he said, waving his hand dismissively. You're wasting your time. You should just go back to where you belong. Stop talking, I said sharply, pulling the envelope out of my pocket, my fingers trembling slightly. You're about to be confronted with reality. What's that? He asked, leaning forward, his smirk replaced by curiosity for the first time. I flipped open the envelope and pulled out the photographs, allowing them to cascade onto the polished surface of the table like dark secrets spilling forth. Each captured moment, a compilation of evidence I had gathered alongside the testimonies of others he had hurt. You think you can just walk away from the devastation you've caused. You think this is just going to blow over. His expression faltered, confusion swirling in his eyes. What are those? Evidence, I stated, bitter satisfaction coursing through me. Evidence of your affairs, your deception. I have everything I need to expose you, Eric. This is just the beginning. He seemed to draw himself together, and for a moment, I could see his mind racing. His bravado was cracking, and realization began to sink in. You really think this is going to work? You can't possibly believe anyone will take your word over mine. Actually, I have witnesses. A slow trickle of people willing to come forward. You might have the money, but soon the truth will surface. And believe me, it will not be kind, I said, feeling the thrill of deliverance wrap around me. Is this really how you want to play this? He asked, his voice shifting into something more dangerous. Because I will destroy you. You will wish you never stepped foot in here. Go ahead. But know this, there are consequences to your actions. I could feel my confidence surging as I slowly began to gather the photographs back into the envelope. You can't hide from the damage you've done, Eric. You can't dodge the truth for long. His face contorted with anger, a mask slipping away to reveal the rage underneath. You're just a bitter woman clinging to a past that never mattered. You think you're doing something important, but your effort is pathetic. Pathetic, I eyed him coolly, a sense of control washing over me. I'm not here to impress you. I'm here to cleanse the air, to see justice served. Unlike you, I won't run away from what I've done. I finished gathering the photographs and placed them back in the envelope, my movements confident, measured. It was as if the air around us had shifted, weight shifted to my end of the table. Eric pushed back against his chair, trying to regain his composure. "You're making a mistake. I will fight back. You won't win." I took a step back towards the door, a smile playing at the corners of my lips, as if I were tasting a sweetness long denied. "Oh, Eric, I'm counting on your fight. It will only make my victory that much sweeter." As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of his face, the anger pulsing beneath the surface, battling against something deeper fear. In that moment, I felt the strength of my decision wash over me. I had taken my power back. I would fight for justice, not just for myself, but for every person he had wronged. I stepped out into the hallway, my heart pounding from the confrontation, but equally victorious, a storm unleashing its fury, not to break, but to cleanse. I was ready to embrace whatever came next. I stood in the dim light of the alley, shadows dancing in the corners as the last remnants of daylight slipped away, fading behind the towering buildings of San Francisco. My heart beat a nervous rhythm against my chest, but I reminded myself to breathe. This was the culmination of everything I had fought for, every sleepless night, every drop of bitter sweat that had landed on the cold, hard ground. Tonight, I would make Avery Fletcher pay. The woman who had destroyed my life, my friendships, and twisted my love for Robert into a weapon against me. The alley smelled of damp concrete and something sweetly nauseating, maybe a spilled drink or leftover food. The city's noise faded behind me, replaced by a throbbing anticipation in the air. Each footstep echoed in my mind, relentless, as I approached the meeting point. If there was one thing Avery couldn't stand, it was losing control. And tonight, I would seize it for myself, right from her petty hands. I pulled my black leather jacket tighter around me, the cool night air causing goosebumps to rise on my arms. Memories flooded back, unwelcome and painful. The laughter I had shared with Avery, how she had seemed like a sister, a friend I could trust. There I was, standing by her side, while she twisted the knife slowly, with a smile plastered on her face. I would not let her smile fool me anymore. A low sound caught my ear. I turned to see a figure coming toward me, shrouded in the golden light of a street lamp. I took a deep breath as Avery stepped into view, her blonde hair illuminating like a halo, a sharp contrast to the darkness surrounding us. She wore a sleek black dress, her confident strides a stark reminder of the power she had always wielded. But tonight was different. This time, it was my turn to command the room, to take back what was mine. "Elena," she called, her voice dripping with feigned sweetness. "I didn't think you would actually show up. I was beginning to think you preferred sulking over making things right." My teeth clenched at her mockery. "Don't pretend like you care, Avery. I know why I'm here, and I know why you are too," she laughed, a high, mocking sound that echoed in the alley, sending a chill down my spine. "Oh, honey, you're so dramatic. It's almost cute. But let's spare each other the theatrics. We both know this is just a game for you, right?" "No, this is real," I shot back, taking a bold step forward. "This ends tonight. Do you understand?" "Touchy, touchy," she said, her grin wide. You really thought you could pull the rug out from under me and get away with it. I didn't just become the most popular girl in town by playing nice. My insides twisted. Images of what Avery had done blurred in my mind, how she had slandered my name, how she'd stolen Robert without a second thought while I lay broken-hearted. Each betrayal was a scar, and combined, they formed a shield of fury. You think this is just about popularity. This is about you ruining lives for your own selfish gain. She tilted her head, faux innocence painted on her features. And you think this is about you. You're no match for me, Elena. You never were. Look at you standing here, bitter and alone. How sad. I felt the sting of her words, but pushed it down. You think I came here alone, I said, the quiet confidence in my voice betraying the tempest of emotions inside me. The tension shifted perceptibly, as if the very air between us thickened. What do you mean? She said, her eyes narrowing. I whipped around, signaling with a slight movement. From behind the wall, Sam stepped into view, carrying a camera. His eyebrows raised in mock incredulity while he trained the lens on us. Just capturing the moment, ladies, he announced, grinning like the Cheshire Cat. Avery's expression morphed from playful to frustrated, her mask slipping. You brought him. Why would you do something so reckless? Ignoring her, I stepped closer. Tonight, we are going to settle something once and for all. You will not spin this narrative or twist the truth any longer. Avery's face contorted in fury. She was losing control. You want to air your dirty laundry in front of everyone. You think this will scare me? No, I said, voice steady. This isn't about scaring you. It's about everyone knowing the truth. Avery's eyes darted to Sam, then back to me. You don't think a couple of snapshots can damage my reputation, do you? I am untouchable. Are you? I challenged, feeling emboldened by the prospect of unveiling her lies. Everyone deserves to see who you really are, Avery. Someone who hides behind flawless skin and trendy outfits while you betray everyone who cares about you. She laughed again, but this time it trembled. You're pathetic, Elena. You were always the sidekick. There is no story worth telling here. You have nothing. I let her words wash over me. I remembered being her sidekick, the way I had once idolized her, the jealousy that had cracked our bond with irreversible damage. Maybe that's what you tell yourself to sleep at night. Sam aimed the camera right at her again. You don't mind if I film this, do you? You'll make a great character in Elena's story. No, she screamed, her voice echoing off the walls like poison. You have no right. This is my life, and you've made it a living nightmare for me, I replied softly. But the steel in my voice only sharpened her rage. I have every right to share my truth. Time to face the consequences. What could you possibly think you're going to accomplish? Her bravado faltered for a moment, revealing the cracks in her carefully constructed facade. Exposing the truth, I declared. No more hiding. You can't just take whatever you want and expect there to be no fallout. This ends with everyone knowing what kind of monster you really are. A charged silence hung between us, thick with anticipation. Avery's eyes narrowed as her mind calculated her next move, weighing her options. But behind that poise, I could see fear bubbling beneath the surface. Do you even know what you're playing with? She hissed, voice low and icy. I smirked, heart pounding with the adrenaline of confrontation. You bet I do. I've been playing with fire, Avery, and now I'm more than ready to watch it burn. And what's that going to accomplish? She challenged, seeking to regain the upper hand. You think this little charade of yours will bring you peace? It's not about me, I shot back, shaking with raw energy. It's about everyone else you've hurt, all the people you've discarded. Then what's stopping you? She sneered. You're scared, just like everyone else. You're terrified of what will happen when people see the real you. Owning my truth is not the same as being scared, I replied fiercely. You don't get to twist this around on me. I see through your lies, and so will the rest of the world. Take your moment then, Avery retorted, stepping into the light, her confidence slowly returning as if bolstered by the shadows of the alley. Do your worst, but know this, I will always rise again. I always do. I clenched my fists, exerting control over the chaos inside me. We'll see about that. It's time for the truth. I turned back to Sam, barely containing my excitement. Capture everything. With a nod, he began filming, framing Avery and me with the alley stark behind us. Action, he called, the sound of the camera rolling amplifying the weight of this moment. Avery's bravado was cracking under the pressure, but she fought back, unyielding. This won't end well for you, Elena. You're making a grave mistake. No, Avery, I said, my voice steady as ever. The only mistake was trusting you. And now everyone will know it too. Why don't you tell everyone how you were always in my shadow? She challenged, her voice rising. How you needed me to shine. Stop, I yelled, forcing back the wave of familiar hurt that rose to choke me. You thought I needed you. That gave you power. But I'm not that girl anymore. I have learned. As Sam's camera continued to roll, I pressed on, recounting every little thing Avery had done to me. How she had manipulated my friends into turning against me. The lies she spread about Robert and me. I saw the color drain from her face, the cracks in her armor deepening with every word. What you don't understand, Avery, I said, voice calm yet resonant, is that I was only waiting for my moment. You can't keep holding the world hostage with your charm and lies. She shifted uneasily, crossing her arms over her chest, as if trying to hold her confidence together like a fragile facade. You think this will hurt me? It will only hurt you in the end. Not if I continue to fight for what is just, I replied, conviction ringing true. Not anymore. Another moment of silence hung between us, thick and tense. The city buzzed around us, oblivious to the battle raging in this small alley. I felt free, finally shedding the weight of my past, releasing the burden of shame that Avery had placed so heavily upon me. Her laugh rang out, but it lost its luster. You've got fire, girl. I'll give you that. But don't think for a second that this is over. You don't know what I'm capable of. But I do, I pressed. And that's the magic of it. I can fight back. I am no longer a victim. Her face twisted in fury as I felt the tide of power shift entirely my way. You think these few words will take me down? You're delusional. Glancing over at Sam, I gave a determined nod. Let's make some noise. The lens focused on Avery once again. Avery Fletcher, known for manipulating relationships to gain power and control, has been exposed. It's time for a new era, an era without liars. I won't be humiliated like this, Avery shouted. You will regret this, Elena, mark my words. But deep down, I felt her bravado falter. The cracks in her veneer were clear against her darkening expression, and for the first time, I saw her falter uncertainty creeping into her eyes. "I welcome whatever comes next," I said, finding my voice stronger now, like jagged steel. "Bring it on, Avery. It's time for your reign to end." This was it. I was finally breaking free, reclaiming my story. A new chapter beckoned, one that began with the truth and the power of my own voice. This was just the beginning, and I could not wait for what lay ahead.